What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Rezolve AI. I want to go over some of the current data points, some of the key highlights from the earnings that you need to kind of take away from it all, and what shorts are doing. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Rezolve's up 4.72%, 213 the low, 257 the high. You're seeing okay volume, so 9.2 million shares being traded, 4.2 is the average. So in comparison to the average, it's fairly good, but I would have anticipated post earnings for it to be like double or triple that, but still nonetheless, institutions paying attention to it is still a pretty good thing. So I haven't done a video since their earnings, and so ultimately they did submit their 20F on the 24th, and then also aside from that though, then they had the actual earnings call on the 28th. As I mentioned in my last video, that is extremely bullish and also bold. And normally, like, you don't see that happening unless there's some mess up from the company. But this, they weren't trying to hide anything. It was just honestly very optimistic, very bold. And so yeah, as far as their 20F, there was a couple of things I wanted to go over. So this was as of December the 31st, 2024. And so ultimately 187,000 in revenue, nice increase. G&A did go up a little bit, but they do have footnotes in here, so a lot of that was due to some conversions. So yeah, it is what it is. That being said though, they did take a pretty big loss, so gain and loss on extinguishment. So it's one thing that technically in here they had a lot of convertible debt, and so ultimately they did take a loss because they did close that out, and they saved themselves millions upon millions by doing so. And they did, even outside of that 44.3 million, there was still a couple other kind of convertible debt products, but based on their Sidoti fireside chat that did occur at the tail end of January, they did close out everything. So essentially, other than the warrants, that's it. So this the company has the shareholders' best interest, because them taking that pretty big loss of 44.3 million, companies typically don't really care all that much. That would hurt the stock price quite significantly, but it actually does directly impact the shareholders. So it goes to show that they are caring about shareholders and retail and institutions and whatever else. So I see that as optimistic. A couple of things though that they did mention in their actual earnings call, which did occur on the 28th. And my apologies, I was planning on live streaming that until I realized it was at like 2:30 a.m. So a little bit too early for my blood to do, I guess, a live stream. But nonetheless though, there's one thing just going through and reading the transcript, but actually listening to it, there was a sense of just confidence, and I really did like that. And I guess historically, or I guess statistically is the right word, normally if a company has a founder, like, they have a certain level of passion and intuition of what to do with the company, whereas if you have like a regular old CEO, they don't have that same drive, and you got that like sense of drive from this earning. So for those of you that haven't actually listened to it, I highly recommend you doing that, not just reading through the transcripts. But a couple of key things that stood out to me from their earnings is break even is coming roughly, I think, in the next 12 to 24 months. So pretty good stuff. They also did raise their guidance. So previously they did say break even was 100 mil. They did lower it down to 90. So that's relatively optimistic. In addition to that though, there's a lot of big deals coming down the pipeline that could realize them between 80 to 90 million of reoccurring revenue. So when it comes down to that, and that should be, I think, mid 2026, or at least over the next year, again, getting them to that break even, that is exactly what you want to see. The management, even prior to the earnings, I said that they are really good at obtaining deals. So I think at the end of the day, this company, because of their lack of, like, we didn't really know much about it. We knew that their product was good, their management was good, but we didn't know to what extent. And we were kind of left in the dark, right? And when you're left in the dark, the market tends to kind of assume the worst. So based on this, we were assuming that there was like impending doom due to the like massive unknown dilution. So basically it shows as of December 31st, 2024, there was 208 million. As of December 31st, 2023, there was 152. Last disclosure during their semi-annual was 100 and I'll quickly go over that. I think that was 172 million. So they're burning through roughly like every 3 months about 15 million. And that, yeah, it's something to pay attention to, but with them being so close to break even, I think at the end of the day, it's still, this is a screaming buying opportunity. A lot of the recent news that has been coming out is very good. So like I mentioned, that 80 to 90 million of reoccurring revenue, that isn't counting the one-offs that has been coming out, such as that Liverpool one. I think that's 8 million alone. So things are getting real fun with this company, and analysts are starting to realize that as well. So we did get a couple new analyst ratings on a side note. So roughly 4 days ago, you had a $5 buy rating, Northland, Michael, who has a 43% success rating. 5 days ago, $4 buy rating, HC Wainwright. As a consensus over the last 3 months, $6.33. That does represent a 160.49% upside. So I still do anticipate a lot more ratings to come out. And even myself, I do feel that there's a hell of a lot more upside, even far greater than that $4 and $5 rating coming. This cycle, possibly I do see roughly around that $3.50 to $4 range in the short term. And I actually did post this on my Patreon as well, where I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. And even my last video, I said that post earnings, this was going to go up considerably. That was at like $1.40. And I stated, even I mentioned it, you can go back, and I said I was going to buy $1.30 if it was going to hit, and it did. I unfortunately only did buy roughly about 2,500 shares. I really wish I would have bought more, but nonetheless, where it is now, it's pretty good return on investment. And even aside from that, I do feel that given where it is and what they forecasted for the future, this should be easily at like $6 to $7 at the very bare minimum. Like the multiple that is being placed on this stock versus similar, like for instance, SoundHound, like night and day difference. And I cover SoundHound on this channel, not hating against them whatsoever, but the multiple that is placed on them, if Rezolve was to have that same level of multiple, they're both not profitable, so you have to look at PS ratios. This should be at like $8 to $10. That's again if you're using that same multiple. So yeah, honestly, this is a crazy deal. I really do prefer Rezolve's management over SoundHound's. And I have to do a little bit more deeper dive into the demonstrations just to see the product and how that does play out. But yeah, honestly, this stock is very good. One thing to take note of though is you see a little bit more of a increase in shorts. So 1.67% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 2.43 million shares. Again, take that with a grain of salt. So it's not a squeeze play, but shorts are starting to get in a little bit more from what they have. So low was at 0.91, where it is now. So they're starting to kind of crawl back in, but cost to borrow average is 287.71%. That's an annual rate, not a daily rate. And just to be fully clear, this is not a squeeze play, in my opinion, unless something does dramatically change in the foreseeable future. But back in the day, and I guess back in the day is March 2025, short interest was 9%. So if they would have just randomly dropped their earnings prematurely, because the deadline is set by the exchange, that if it is a foreign company that they have to kind of follow within those guidelines, but there was nothing really holding them back. If they really wanted to, they could drop it in March. That would have really prompted a squeeze, but where it is now, I don't really see that. And you do see a little bit more popular options being traded, so a lot more volume getting in. 62,000 in calls, 12,000 in puts. 56% of all the options being done are bullish in nature, and despite it still being up roughly over the last 5 days, 58.6%, you still do see a certain level of optimism. So most likely what I do feel is going to be also coming in the next probably 2 weeks is a increase in chains, because market makers, if they see a kind of bump up in the average volume for options, they will offer more chains, because this is it. They're pretty crappy if you ask me. So you have a 250, 5, and then 750 strike price. That's it. So most likely I do anticipate them to offer increments of most likely $1, or even in some cases 50 cents. So you'll see that bump up a little bit more. So that should be fairly good and optimistic. Right now with that $2.40, trading right above these points, so this R3 and this R2. So 220 will be a strong support, and then 295 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance. So most likely it's just going to go through a little bit more of a consolidation phase in the next little bit, and then that is where you'll have that nice rocket. That's just what happens. No stock just generally goes up like crazy. You have that profit taking, and then it goes up again. So I think over the next couple days, you might see that consolidation phase, but honestly, bigger picture, this is a screaming buying opportunity if you ask me. So right now it's just kind of flirting a little bit with that 100-day moving average, $2.29. Then the next strong target would be this. So the 200-day moving average, $4.74. So like I said, I think that this company is still speculative because it's not profitable right now, but it is as safe as a spec play can get given this market circumstance. So I really like Rezolve. Hopefully you do too, and hopefully you guys did buy in prior to the earnings, because I think all the writing was on the wall that it was going to go up higher. So give yourself a shout out if you did buy, if you sold. What did you do with Rezolve behind the scenes? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. And then one final thing, if you are looking for some kick-ass buy signals such as this and many others, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Definitely worthwhile to at least pop over there and take a look. With all that said though, appreciate all of you watching.